Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Louise and I make content on Instagram and YouTube about happiness, sustainability and productivity. Today I'm bringing you the second installment of my book club series where I talk about books that I think are important or interesting. Today I'm going to be talking about The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. And I'm really excited to talk about this video because it's obviously very well known, it's very popular, a lot of people say it's overhyped, and I really want to break it down. I think a lot of people have opinions about this book but haven't actually read this book, so I'm going to give you a brief summary of it and the points that I think are really interesting, and then afterwards I'm going to give you my opinions on the book and whether I think you should go away and read it or not. So the way that I took notes on this book was I wrote down what I deemed to be the Konmari Method, which is what Marie Kondo calls her method of tidying up. So when I was writing this, I just tried to write myself some instructions for the Konmari Method, which I'm kind of annoyed that she didn't do in her book. I wish that at the end of her book she'd given an A4 piece of paper that was so here's a summary of how I go about my tidying method, but she didn't, so I kind of just did that myself. So that's what I'm going to read to you, and I tried to put this list into some kind of order, into some kind of steps about how to go about tidying. So step number 1 is that you must tidy up perfectly in one go. What Marie Kondo talks about is this idea of doing one big declutter, and she suggests that the reason that we should do this is because if we do something small, it might not have an emotional impact on us, but if we can have this huge big declutter, then it has a really emotional impact on us, and that's much more likely to make us want to keep our space tidy, and we're much more likely to see the benefits of minimalism if we see this drastic change in our lives. So that's why she suggests that instead of doing it in piece by piece, you should tackle an entire room or an entire house at once, and even if it takes an entire week to do a house, she suggests that you should see it as one project that you do all at once. And she says that you should do it perfectly, and this is the idea that you should do everything. Don't be oh, I'll do this next week. You really need to do everything that you want to do in this decluttering process so that you can really see the full potential of your house and how good it could be if it was as tidy as you wanted it to be. And the other reason why she suggests we should do this is because a lot of people don't actually like tidying up. I personally quite enjoy decluttering and tidying, but I'm aware that I'm a bit weird, but most people don't. So she suggests that we shouldn't train our brains to believe that tidying is this thing that we should be doing all the time. Tidying should be this thing that we do once and then it's done, and then after that all you have to do is put things back in their right place. You shouldn't be tidying every single day. Tidying should just be this thing that you do occasionally. If you think it's something you have to do every day, then you're not going to want to do it, because if you don't enjoy it, then why would you do it? So then your house is going to become messy again. So she says that tidying isn't this thing you should constantly be doing. It's this thing that you should do once and then move on and enjoy your space. So when you come to tidy, the first thing you should do is pick a category to organize. She says that you should tidy in order of categories and not locations. You should start with the categories that are easiest to clutter and work up to the hardest ones so that you can hone in your decluttering skills. She suggests that the best order is clothes, books, paper, miscellaneous items, and then sentimental items, because that's kind of the order of how difficult those things are to declutter. Number 3, the next step is to collect everything you own around your house in that category and bring it all into one space. And by doing this, there are 2 advantages. Firstly, you can see just how much you own, and you can get a real perspective on just how much you own. On the TV show that you did, you can see everyone is really shocked when they're asked to bring all of their clothes and lay them onto a bed or on the floor. They're really shocked to see just how much they own. It really helps them to realize, oh, I don't need to own this much. Whereas if you do things one by one, you might never truly be able to visualize just how much you own. And the second reason why you should do this is because it helps you to compare similar items. You might find that you have 2 of the same thing in different parts of your house, and you might not necessarily need to have that. Number 4, and the bit that we all know Marie Kondo for, is she says you should go through each item one by one, holding it up and asking yourself, does it spark joy? And that you should only keep the items that spark joy. Some people have issues with this because it obviously doesn't allow for practical and convenience, so I prefer the minimalist definition of whether you should keep something or not, and they say you should keep items which add value to your life. So this means either things that are practical and that add functional value to your life, or things that are artistic and that you enjoy and that bring you joy and therefore add value to your life. That's kind of the definition I prefer to go with. But she says you should do this because focusing on what you want to keep instead of what you want to get rid of will make this a much more enjoyable experience, because you're focusing on the positive aspects of it. And with this mindset, if you have to go through every single item, you're much more likely to get rid of things, because maybe a lot of things you own don't add value to your life. But if you just looked along your bookshelf and saw which books should I get rid of, you might not choose to get rid of them. Whereas she says what you should do is you should take all of the books out and look at them one by one and decide whether to put them back in or not, and you're much more likely to get rid of more books this way. So the next step is obviously to discard the rest. She says that papers should be discarded wherever possible because they just kind of create clutter. What I like to do is I scan basically everything, so I hardly have any physical piece of paper lying around. These days you really never need a physical piece of paper as proof of something. If there is something that you do need to have proof of, usually a scan is more than enough. And then the next step is to store the remaining items accordingly. So she says that it's important to finish decluttering and discarding before you start organizing, because then you can find a solution that really works for how much stuff you own. If you have this huge book collection and then you go through it and you decide to only keep a few books, you now don't need that giant bookcase. You can use a smaller one or find a new space to store your books. So it's important to work out how much you're keeping before you start organizing it. And then she says, and this is what I think is one of her nuggets of gold, is that you should designate a place for every single item you own so that it's extremely easy to put away. I think this is revolutionary because it means that when you are doing random small bursts of tidying, there's no stress in it. There's no like, oh my god, I don't know where this goes. When I come to tidy up, when I do like 15-minute tidies, it's literally just me picking up an item and putting it where it belongs, because everything I own already has a home. So it's really important that everything you own, you know where it belongs. And it doesn't need to have like a perfect little organized home, it just needs to have somewhere where it belongs. And then this next bit I think is another like nugget of gold, and it's something that I haven't really done before, and it's kind of the next thing I'm trying to do in my minimalism, organizing, decluttering life journey. And I'm going to read this to you because it's a bit long, but she says, clutter is caused by failure to return things to where they belong. Therefore, storage should reduce the effort needed to put things away, not the effort needed to get them. When we want to get something, we have a clear purpose for getting it out. And so unless for some reason it's incredibly hard work, we usually don't mind the effort involved. Clutter has only two possible causes. Too much effort is required to put things away, or it's unclear where things belong. And I think it's important to work out what for you always stops you putting things away. And I realised that for me, it's lids. Which sounds really stupid, but like if a box has a lid on it, or if I have like a stack of boxes with lids on it and something needs to go in the bottom box, I'm just never going to put it away. I will leave it on the side, and then the next time I'm having a proper tidying session, I'll put it away. And that is really bad because things just end up lying around on the floor. So what I'm trying to do now is to not have lids on anything. In the top of my wardrobe, I have some shoe boxes, and I've like cut the lids off of them, and they're just like almost little like files that have stuff in them. And I'm finding that to be really helpful. So that is something I'm trying to think about going forward, is this idea of making things really easy to put away, because that way my space won't be a mess if things are really easy to put away. She says the secret to maintaining an uncluttered room is to pursue ultimate simplicity in storage so that you can tell at a glance how much you have. And I really agree with this. This idea that things should be really simple and easy to put away, and also this idea that you should be able to see what you have at a glance. So when you go into your wardrobe, you should really be able to see, these are all my clothes, these are all the clothes I own. There's not things in loads of different places, there's not so much stuff that you can't see it. It's not organized in a way where you just forget what you own. It's really important that you can see everything you own, because then you won't lose track of what you do own. You won't end up not being able to find things, and you won't end up buying things because you think you've lost something or because you forget that you have something. If you make sure that everything is organized. So for me, all of my clothes basically are hung up in this wardrobe on the rail, and so it means I can open my wardrobe and I can really easily see what clothes I own. So she talks about storing things vertically, and I think this is one of those things that people think is mad, but it's one of those things that I personally love. I now like these drawers down here, I don't know if you can see them, I do the Marie Kondo method where everything is like folded up. And again, the reason that this is amazing is because you can see everything at a glance. I open that drawer and I can see everything. And that to me just makes it so much less stress-free, because I can literally just really easily grab the item I need. I'm not like ruffling through the drawer trying to find the thing that I'm looking for, and I can really easily keep track of like what's in the wash, what's clean, what do I have, what do I need to buy, etc. And she suggests that you shouldn't hide off-season items, because then you're probably likely to just forget about them. So if you have a winter coat, you should probably keep it in your wardrobe all year round, because firstly, if there is like a fluke cold day, then you can get your coat and it's not like in the attic and you're not suddenly stuck on like this freak cold day without no winter coat. And secondly, you know, it will prevent you from buying one the next year. You might, if your winter coat is stored in the attic, you're much more likely to like buy yourself a new one. Whereas if you've been staring at your winter coat all year round, you'll probably be more excited to wear it again when the weather does get colder. She says that the only things that you should store far away are things that have a really specific purpose. Things like Christmas decorations or skiing equipment, because, you know, every Christmas you're going to go and get your Christmas decorations. You're never going to be like, oh, I wonder if we have Christmas decorations, or I wonder what Christmas decorations we have. You're every year going to go up to the attic and get your Christmas decorations. And similarly with like skiing equipment and things like that, this idea that like if you were to go on a skiing holiday, P.S. I've never been skiing, please don't take this as a really privileged example, this was just the example she used in the book and it kind of makes the most sense. But okay, sporting holiday equipment, again, I haven't really done this, but Things like that, where, you know, if you were going to go on a skiing holiday, you would go get your skiing equipment out of the attic and you could just store it all in a big box or in a big bag labelled skiing equipment, and every year, whatever, when you go skiing, you would go and get that. So she says things like that you can store like in the attic and out of the way, because they are big and bulky and they would take up space, so you can store them in the attic. But other than that, really try and avoid putting things far away. And then number 7, the last like step that I have in my notes, is this idea that you cannot tidy for other people. You can't tidy for other people because it's actually the tidying process and their awareness of their lifestyle and how much they own that's far more important than any skills they could learn when it comes to tidying. The reason why she talks about doing this big declutter is because it would have an emotional impact on you. If you've watched her TV show, you'll see how this does like transform people's lives. And she says that process is what's really transformative in a person's life, and that's why if you tidy for someone else, they're much more likely to like rebound and start owning much more stuff again, because they didn't go through that process. And then she talks about how if you live with other people and if you're frustrated by them, you can't tidy for other people, as we've just discussed. And so the best way to lead is by example. If you are really tidy and other people can see just how much nicer your life is, if you're like stress-free and you can always find what you need, people are much more likely to be inspired by that and want to do that rather than you nagging them to tidy. And she also pointed out that when your space is tidy, like if you have a room, if your room is tidy, then you're going to be much less bothered by other people's spaces. If someone else's room is a mess, it really probably won't bother you if your own room is a mess and if you have somewhere calm that you can return to. And this is something that can't really explain why, but it feels so true for me. When my own room is a nice, like calm, tidy sanctuary, I really don't care what's happening in other people's rooms. And even if like the kitchen or like the common room or the communal room is a mess, it's not an issue because I have my own place to return to if that is stressing me out. So those are the notes that I made on this book. And now let's talk about my feelings on this book. The reason why I wanted to talk about this book is because I think it really does have some nuggets of gold in it, but I'm aware that it's an overhyped book. A lot of people think that this book is very wishy-washy and that all the advice in it is really cliche. Although I will say, I think this is one of those books where a lot of the advice feels cliche, but this is the place it originated. It was written like 10 years ago, I think, and it's been read and circulated by a lot of people by now. So a lot of that advice we have been hearing over and over again, but it did kind of start here. So the book should get some credit for that. But as I said, for me, the value in this book is those nuggets of wisdom about how to tidy. This idea that you should be able to see everything at a glance, that things should be really easy to put away, that everything should have a designated home, that you should only keep things that add value to your life. Those for me have been really great tips and have really helped me to work out how to organize what I own. And so for me, this book has value because I really learned some stuff from Marie Kondo about how to tidy from her. Although I will say that most of this I already knew before I read the book, because I've been a big fan of Marie Kondo. You know, everyone talks about her, everyone knows these things. I'd watched the TV show, so I didn't actually learn that much by reading the book, but just from Marie Kondo and her teachings, these things have really helped me. But I think the biggest criticism, or the thing to be careful of, is this book is not about inspiring someone to become more minimalist. What I think this book is good at doing is teaching how to tidy, but I don't think it's good at teaching why to tidy. And I think that's a lot of people's criticism of this book. They go to this book expecting to find answers about minimalism, and really it's just a very practical book about physically how do you tidy. So I would recommend this book to someone who has already been researching minimalism and has become interested in it and now wants to find some practical tips about how to tidy the things that they've decided to keep. That is who I would recommend this book for. I would probably not recommend this book for people who are like beginners in minimalism or who are interested in minimalism and want to learn about it. I think there are other much better resources out there for that. I would personally recommend reading or watching anything by the minimalists. They talk much more about the why you should be a minimalist and the benefits of minimalism. So I think that's most people's main concern with it, and so I think that's okay. This book doesn't have to do that, but I think the issue is that this book is often sold as a book about minimalism, and it's not a book about minimalism, it's a book about how to tidy up. So yeah, that's my honest opinion. Would I recommend reading this book? I'm honestly not sure. I think I've given you most of like the golden nuggets of wisdom in that 10-minute summary. I don't think there's much more that you would gain from the book by reading it that you can't read online in any online summary, or that you haven't already heard, because I think we've all heard all of these lessons before. However, I would recommend watching the Netflix series that's called like Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, something like that, because I just personally really enjoyed it. But I think that's because, as I said, I enjoy tidying and I also enjoy vicariously tidying by watching other people. I really enjoy watching like decluttering videos on YouTube, and this had a similar vibe. Marie Kondo would go into someone's house, she wouldn't even do the tidying for them. It felt like such a scam. In a way, she would go into the house and she would be like, you're gonna tidy now, and then she'd come back and she'd obviously teach them like how to tidy, but then she'd go away and she'd come back in like a couple of weeks and their house would be magically tidy. And honestly, I just really enjoyed it as like some feel-good TV. Got a bit emotional at times with people being like crying because their house was finally the space they'd always dreamt of. So I'm not saying that it's like highly informative or life-changing TV, but I think it's just a good fun binge watch. So I would recommend watching that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and my honest thoughts on this book. I would love to hear what other books you would like to see in this series, or what other books you think I should read. I would really love to find a good book about minimalism. As I said, I would really recommend The Minimalists. I have read one of their books, but that was their essay collection, and I don't think I would recommend that as like a guide to minimalism because it was just like a collection of essays. But I think I need to read their first book, which is meant to be like a better guide to minimalism. But I want to have like some books I can recommend to people when they want to learn more about minimalism. So if you know any good books about minimalism, please do leave a comment below. But as I said, if you want my advice at the moment, I would just recommend anything by The Minimalists. They have a podcast, they have a book, they have a blog, they have documentaries on Netflix, they have all the things, and I would just recommend anything they've made. They really talk about like why you should be a minimalist, and it really makes sense. They give reasons for it. They really go and explain those things. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what other books you want to see in the series. My name is Louise, and you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Louise's Life. Thank you for watching.